Welcome back once more. This is Sunday edition. Let's now get into the politics. Of course, it is a campaign trail today. Exactly 29 days to the 8th of August when Kenyans will be going to the polls to elect their next set of leaders. Of course, the political candidates, the more than 14,000 of them, according to the IEBC list, have been busy on the campaign trail. We are focusing on the presidential campaign. Let's start with Jubilee and find out where they were this past week. They did visit some place among Bomet County during the launch of the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, that is Joyce Laboso's launch of her gubernatorial manifesto. Let's listen into what was said in Bomet.
Raila alikuwa prime minister. Nyinyi watu wa Kajiado. Wakati wa prime minister amepatia cheo gani hapa Kajiado? Hebu mniambie.
Mwenendo wa kubadilisha katiba huwezi utumie chini ya shilingi bilioni 20. Jameni, tutatumia shilingi bilioni 20 kutafutia wazee waine kazi au tutatumia bilioni 20 kuweka maji katika tauni hii ya Isinya? Mashindano ndio inasababisha lami ikose katika town, kwa sababu kila siku ni kelele. Ati nani mkubwa kushinda mwingine? Kuna wewe mkubwa kushinda mwingine? Mkubwa katika taifa la Kenya ni mwananchi. Tukiwa sasa na governor ambaye ameweka mipangilio ya vile mbegu ya kisasa itaweza ifikie mkulima, sisi kama serikali ya kitaifa tuhakikishia ya kwamba hii KCC yenu hapa Sotik tutaipanua, ndio maziwa yenu isiwe inamwagika.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, they are speaking in Sotik in Bomet County. Prior to that was a campaign trail, a Jubilee rally in Isinya in the county of Kajiado. Before we get into that, Jubilee were in your county the other day.
Which county is that?
Tharaka Nithi is your county. What's happening there? NASA have been a bit strong, but pundits say it's still a Jubilee zone. Very quickly, what can you tell us about that?
Very quickly, I just want to say that I come from that county of Tharaka Nithi, and His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has his followers there. Equally the same, His Excellency the former Prime Minister, of whose campaign I'm involved in and spearheading, as a majority of votes in Tharaka Nithi. What is called as...
NASA has a majority of votes?
Yes, I can say that in confidence, and I'll substantiate. In 2007, this name of stronghold could not be in newspapers today if it were not for Tharaka Nithi in 2007. After all the counting of votes was done in the Republic, there were 3 announcements made about that county. There were votes for Nithi County. There were votes for Tharaka County, and the votes for Tharaka Nithi County. All together were summed up to elect His Excellency, the former President, Mwai Kibaki. And that's what Jubilee is banking on. That is long gone. This time round, we are going to have one county. It's called Tharaka Nithi County. That's one mistake there. They don't realize until now. The 3 counties have collapsed into one since 2007. The second thing, Tharaka Nithi County is one of the geographically and the politically, economically marginalized counties in this country because of our tribal-based politics. And for that reason, the citizens are looking for better life.
Right.
And they don't find it in Jubilee. They have left. Only a few of their leaders who are shouting, and they have the resources to do that.
Yet the senator of that county, your brother, is the leader of majority in the Senate.
Where is the majority? Are they in Tharaka Nithi? The majority, where are they? Let's distinguish between the majority and Tharaka Nithi.
Okay.
The majority are not in Tharaka Nithi, I'm saying, and he knows it. They are elsewhere.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough. Obviously, we shall be getting into, we shall be keeping an eye on Tharaka Nithi to find out what happens in this election. Let's get into that. The Jubilee were in Kajiado, they went to Bomet. What is your take on how their campaign has been? They're seemingly, that is focusing on Bomet, which they say is their stronghold, again, to use that cliche. And Kajiado, Kajiado is said to be a battleground.
Allow me to interject and say this. The clip that you have just played is talking about the life of the current presidential candidate, Raila Amolo Odinga, being a prime minister. And no one is talking about His Excellency the President when he was Minister for Local Government, when he was Minister for Finance, when he was Deputy. So this is a kind of, misinformation and fake news that is being propagated. If we have to consider His Excellency the former Prime Minister, when he was MP for Kipra, then we should also be told why jigas are still in Gatundu when His Excellency was the MP. You understand?
All right.
So we are just analyzing the presidency within the last 4.5 years and full stop.
All right.
Yeah.
What's your take on that and what the president did say? And he keeps saying on the campaign trail, accusing the NASA principles of being in government for long and not doing anything.
In my view, when you analyze what the president has been saying and his deputy, as well as Adan Duale, it's very clear, even to somebody who doesn't follow politics, that the Jubilee campaign has run out of ideas. They're no longer campaigning on solid ideas. For instance, for majority leader not in the Senate, in the National Assembly, Adan Duale, to start telling Kenyans that Jubilee respects Article 10 about the national face, national inclusion in the appointment of government, that really makes, I think that's a comedy. Because even if you pick one ministry, say Ministry of Finance, or you go to the Ministry of Energy, or you go to the National Law Office, and you look at the faces, it's going to be a pendulum. It's going to be swinging between the Kikuyu nation and the Kalenjin nation. So that's not the face of Kenya. And then number two, the president and his deputy keep on accusing the NASA principles of having been in government for the longest time possible. If you use the same scale on President Kenyatta, for all intents and purposes, President Kenyatta has been in government his entire life. He's said to have been born in State House. He served for a long time. When Raila Odinga was the prime minister, his deputy prime minister was President Kenyatta. President Kenyatta was Minister for Finance. He's been Minister for Local Government. He's been Minister for Trade. We can interrogate further and ask, when he has served in all these positions, what have been the landmark projects he's done, or some signature events that he's done? You can say, when he was the Minister for Finance, he did something amazing. When he was in charge of trading, he did something amazing. And then what they failed to realize, that Raila Odinga has never been president of the Republic of Kenya to do anything. So he's never had the executive power. He's never had the backstopper team. When he was a when he was a prime minister and in charge of the Nusumukate, he was not in charge of the two key components. For you to be an effective leader in any nation, you must be in charge of what political scientists refer to as violence. So you must control the police, the military, and other associated security agencies, and you must be responsible for finances. Raila Odinga was not responsible for that. And then there's another issue that the president is ignoring. That's chapter 6.
To react to all this, a lot is being hit towards
the Jubilee candidates. When Dismas, my friend Dismas, says that Uhuru was born in State House, he forgets that the Prime Minister is also the son of the first Vice President of this country. It's a fact.
His father was not president. Was he?
To also...
Was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga president of Kenya?
I have said he was born into leadership. If that argument holds for Uhuru, then it is only fair that it also holds for. But that is not the point. The point is this. We start looking at them from the point that they sought public mandate. Because when they were doing their things as private citizens, it's unfair, really, to start looking at. They had nothing to do with us then. It doesn't matter what family they come from. The issue is this: at what point did they seek our mandate, and what have they done from there henceforth? Uhuru is known, is remembered to have come up with the economic stimulus, program. And if you remember very well, every constituency has a center of academic excellence. It was given 30 million, and that is a mark. And there were very many other things that were given. I remember markets were given. If your leaders didn't do those things, you need to ask them, because this money was devolved at the constituency level. But there were things that were done. I remember that in Embakasi we did a lot with the money that came, because then I was serving the constituency CDF committee. And that stimulus was really some injection. It was almost, in total, it was 80 million per constituency on top of every other thing that they always get as CDF. So these people have done, and when they ask that, probably the best thing is to respond and not to show that there is nothing either has done, because all of them have done something. It is upon us to bring out what our candidates have done. I've told you the ESP was a brainchild of the current president when he was Minister for Finance. And it actually did, if you look at your constituencies, even your rural constituencies, I don't know them, but I know they are part of the 290, you will find, especially the former 210, you will find something that was done using that economic stimulus program. So that was something. It was an initiative. So you can't just say that they did nothing. So if you have having a problem with pinpointing what the NASA presidential candidate did, don't try to also make it look like this other side did nothing. There's something I want to say before we move from there. You know, they were in Machakos on Tuesday, and you were like forgetting that, and there's something very key that happened. Mutua was missing, and he's known to be, Chap is allied to Jubilee. But when the president visited Machakos on Tuesday, Mutua was nowhere to be seen. So we are left wondering what might have been the reasons. And probably there are only three things that can explain that. One is that probably the ground is so hostile to Mutua than it is to the president. And to avoid having heckling in the presidential rallies, he was kept off. That is one. I'm just giving three.
Becoming a poison chalice for him.
That's the number two. I'm coming there. That's why I was telling you there are three reasons that can explain why he didn't go. So one is that probably the president had intelligence that if you carry along Mutua, the hostility that is going to be directed at Mutua will look like is hostility directed at your functions. So you keep off. Then the second one is what you're trying to say, that Mutua probably has been getting a lot of backlash for publicly endorsing Jubilee, and he is trying to correct. And the third one is this. There are a lot of national government projects going on. The truth of the matter is that the county government of Machakos has been claiming credit. And it would have been very embarrassing for the president to go with Mutua in areas that he had previously gone to claim credit of these projects, and then the president is here.
So those are the scenarios.
Again, yes, launching the same projects. Those three scenarios explain why he was not part of the presidential entourage, yet he is openly supporting Jubilee.
Interesting. All right.
Now, I just want to ask him, and
the final thoughts on this, and then we move to NASA. The NASA
Who was the Minister for Planning during the economic stimulus package program?
Wycliffe Oparanya must be.
So, it is the Ministry of Planning that brought out the economic stimulus project. The Treasury was simply, as is expected, to be involved in rolling it out. So the Treasury cannot take credit for work prepared elsewhere and delivered for implementation.
I've never heard Oparanya himself take credit for that.
Just a moment. I'm taking institutions, not persons. I just wanted to bring Oparanya to bring out the fact that there was a minister responsible for preparation of that plan, which was implemented like all government projects through the Treasury. Now, I want to come back to what you asked about the president's visit in the two places. The president's hammering that they are going to spend 20 million shillings creating jobs for people, all right? In my view, he missed the point. The point is trying to camouflage the fact that his government has wasted billions and billions that have not helped any citizen except the cartels that are supporting his party. Now, using 20 million to spread participation, to be inclusive, cannot be described as negative. Because you are creating a situation where people who have been in the cold for so long become a parcel of the national service fabric. Those are my comments.
But there's something that we need to buttress what Tinda has indicated, and is what the dynamic duo keep on referring that there are youthful leadership. And maybe for Professor Tumbo, who's worked with the UN, he needs to give us a definition of a youth. Because you cannot be 50 plus and still claim to be a youth. And the only youthful thing you see from the Jubilee leadership is the decision-making process, which is not structured in a manner that serves the interest of the nation. Because most of the decisions they've made, even in what you're talking about, I mean, as a Minister for Finance, if the only thing you can celebrate is the economic stimulus of 80 million to a constituency, then there's something wrong. So the leadership is, in my view, is akin to an adolescent taking decisions without a global appreciation of issues, knowing that if you take a decision today as a president of Kenya, every single word coming out of your mouth affects our socioeconomic status as a nation.
All right, let's move on to the other side of the political divide and find out what they were doing in terms of their political campaigns, the presidential campaign, to be specific. And the two campaigns seem to be mirroring each other, really, following each other, where when one visits a particular region, a few days later, you see the other one holding rallies there. And Raila Odinga did take the NASA vote hunt to the county of Bomet, did hold a rally at Ndanai, and of course another one in the county of Kericho. Let's listen to what the NASA brigade was saying.
Sasa tumemwambia jamaa hatutaki wajaribu wizi wa kura tena. Nimeona jana, juzi nilisema kulikuwa na njama ya kuiba kura na kuleta wanajeshi pamoja na polisi. Nimeshangaa jana waziri wa ulinzi akiongea, anasema watu wanajitayarisha pamoja na polisi ati kuleta usalama wakati wa uchaguzi. Jeshi haina jukumu kwa mambo ya ulinzi wa kindani. It is not the responsibility of the military to get involved in internal security. And if the government wants to use the military, they must go to parliament and get parliamentary authority.
Also on that NASA campaign trail, where it started in this past week was in the county of Kiambu, which is predominantly a Jubilee, where Jubilee enjoys a lot of support, but the NASA brigade was there with a convoy, and they did make an address where the candidate Raila Odinga did make his statements or his case, who voters there in the county of Kiambu.
We want all Kenyans, irrespective of tribe, wapate nafasi ya kuishi na kufanya biashara pahali popote katika Kenya hii.
Mimi Raila Odinga ni rafiki wa Kikuyu. Tena mimi niliteua kijana ambaye anaitwa Maura huyu. Simeteua yeye kama mjumbe maalum. Na Resho Shebesh natoka hapa. Tumeweka yeye kama mjumbe nominated kwa chama changu. Sinaweka yeye. Na Mumbi Ngaru. Si ni mbunge wa East African Legislative Assembly. Si katika chama yangu. Sio. Kwa hivyo Wakikuyu wako ndani ya NASA.
Prof, what is your take on that approach by the NASA candidate?
I think
he's trying to woo the Kikuyu.
Yes, he's trying to make his case. The interesting thing about the difference is that what he's stating is factual. You know, it's not deceit. It's part of his political strategy to make his case. I think that when you look at this whole scenario, in my opinion, the competition, all right, NASA seems like everywhere they go, they have a specific message for that group or that section of a particular community. It has been tailored in such a way that is giving coverage. Now, and the fact that they are spread around, they are around all over the country, delivering appropriate messages to specific groups, gives them leverage. Now, on the other hand, when you look at Jubilee, everything is about His Excellency the President, about Ruto, about Duale, and sometimes Mukomen. Now, it's extremely important to realize that what we started with in this show about communication appears to be a problem in Jubilee permanently. Even when they are delivering very good message, it tends to be cluttered. It tends to be crisscrossing. It's given this way. In another forum, it's given differently by a different person. So harmonization of the communication system is extremely important for Jubilee, for them going forward to regain any territory they may have lost to NASA. The last point I want to make is this. We didn't mention Bomet, but NASA visited Kericho. NASA had a meeting in Kericho. And in that meeting, an important point was made that is now gaining tremendous impact on the ground. The former Prime Minister said that, the leases for all these farms are expiring. These ones by Lonro, by Brookborn, by whatever. Now, and when the leases expire, you know who is coming to take these shambas. And they left it there. The interpretation was that, and the message I've had was, big people in government are the ones who are preparing to take over those shambas. Now, further interpreted, that meant that, it means even those of us who are squatters on some parts, or residents, some parts of those shambas are going to be thrown out. Now, in terms of political impact, it put Kericho with bigger numbers than Bomet at a point that is now NASA leaning. You can send people to do research.
All right.
It has impact on the ground that is causing a lot of concern in Jubilee.
Interesting point. We'll of course keep an eye on that. Jubilee claimed that is an entirely Jubilee zone. What is there on that?
I'm really not sure about what he's saying, because I do not know where he got the notion that people would be more comfortable with living their shambas with the NASA side and not the Jubilee side, because a quick history into the leadership of this country and where they've come from to where they are today will show that none of them is very innocent of these accusations. That's the truth of the matter. If you go to the Ndongo report, it will show you about the NYS farm, it will show you about molasses, it will show you about... So it's a cancer that affects all the political class.
Right.
And it would be dishonest.
I
first wanted to correct that. It would be dishonest to hold it that land would be safer under NASA than under Jubilee. The other thing I wanted to say about Kiambu is that it is a very good sign that our country is moving from that era of exclusive zoning of regions, political exclusive zoning, because you understand Kiambu is the home county of the president. And actually, it was quite impressive to see that the whole tour had no incidences. And people came out and they listened, and the Raila left and there was no incident. I think that is commendable, and that is, we need to see more and more of that. And my friend here spoke about youthfulness. I want to tell him that the issue of youth nowadays is a legal term in Kenya. The constitution is very clear that a youth is someone between age of 18 and below 35. But there is also a youthfulness, and youthfulness is relative. and it would be dishonest to deny that Jubilee is more youthful than NASA. That's just a fact. Yeah.
All right.
By the way, to finish, I was going to say, you see, youth per se is not necessarily an advantage in a position of performance, because youth also here speaks lack of experience, lack of exposure, lack of everything.
It's both sides.
It's both sides.
But it also means more
untainted, more energy, passion.
Yeah, so you can be young.
This conversation is very much on my right hand.
We are being marginalized here. But yes, then there's a germane issue. I attended a forum where people were discussing what Kavemba is describing as a youthful leadership. And there's a new name in society saying Utoto leadership. And they're saying what the Utoto leadership has done to Kenya, it has given us food insecurity. Because what is Wanjiku looking for? Wanjiku doesn't care about your age, provided you take the right decisions and you make sure that they've got unga at the right price. Now, when you go to Machakos, and I think for Machakos it's already a wrap, that President Kenyatta can make 1 million trips, whether it's going to be in the company of Alfred Mutua, whether it's going to be alone, it's already a wrap, that it's going to be Wavinya Ndeti who is taking the trophy home. But the most important thing as we have this conversation, we need to ask ourselves, what happened to the TJRC report that the professor is referring to? Because if you're going to discuss the land issue, you cannot just pick bits and pieces. You must go back to TJRC and ask ourselves, what are the recommendations? And how come Jubilee is tiptoeing around that issue? Why can't it come out in the open and say, these are the major issues, this is the way we are going to implement this? Because when you discuss land, people say in Kenya, land is an emotional issue. And when NASA mentioned the issue of the leases expiring in Kericho, of course, everybody knows where the fingers are being pointed. The only reason why we can't discuss it in the open is for the fear of libel and slander. But for the local community, they know very well. There were many synonyms used, and everybody understood what Raila Odinga was referring to.
All right, that aside, do you think NASA is going to get any votes from Kiambu and such like counties?
That's a tall order. And maybe for Professor Kindiki, he needs to go and tell Raila Odinga to use his time in a very structured manner. You can go to Kiambu, a crowd will come out, not because they want to vote for you, but they've been told Raila Odinga is an enigma and is going to be in turnaround. So they'll come and watch your motorcade and see how you are doing your campaign. For a typical person in Kiambu who is held hostage by the tribal lords, on the material day, on August 8th, they'd rather abstain from voting than go and vote for Raila Odinga. So that's a tall order. He'll be lucky to get 1,000 votes from Kiambu. But if he stays focused in Tharaka Nithi and in Meru, he's likely to get up to even 50% of the votes.
All right.
I want to correct him before you ask me anything. Please let me correct him. Last general election, amid the stealing and all that of the votes, Raila Odinga and 61, whatever other prefixes you want to use, 61,000 votes from Kiambu vis-a-vis Uhuru Kenyatta's 7-something. 61,000. And he says this time around he's going to get less than 1,000. We have enough machinery to solicit for votes in Kiambu, and His Excellency is going to get a sizable chunk of votes from Kiambu. Not just Central Kenya.
But let me clarify the point. Right. Yeah. When you go to Kiambu, there are so many people who have registered voters there who are not necessarily from the Kikuyu nation. My reference was to the native Kikuyus who are Kikuyus voting for Raila Odinga. In Kiambu, we have got so many guys from Western Kenya, Luyas, Luos, Kisis.
That's something else very misleading on
so
a national
that's the point
TV.
I'm trying to make.
The votes in Kiambu County are for Kiambu voters, and they are not Kikuyu voters. So when we try to profile people who live in Kiambu, we are misleading this republic.
Right.
Let's talk about the voters in Kiambu, the voters in Machakos, the voters in Tharaka Nithi.
All right. Be that as it may, Prof.
Yeah.
So what is your strategy trying to get anything out of
today is Sunday.
Including Tharaka Nithi.
Today is Sunday.
Yes.
And I want to greet the Christians across the republic and remind them of a sermon I listened in 1985. And that time there was a preacher who was saying that many Christians are promoting the devil more than Jesus himself. A preacher gets into stage, and for 45 minutes, they are preaching what the devil has done to the family and to yourself and to what, and they are sweating for 45 minutes. When you look at the two clips you have played about Sotik and the other one where His Excellency former Prime Minister was speaking in Kiambu, Raila Amolo Odinga spoke about himself and his agenda for the Kiambu people. The other one was about by the Jubilee people, and they were talking about what Raila did not do. They did not tell the people of Sotik what they have done for 4 years. And the entire government was there. They cannot come to say, oh, we'll bring 20 million for Sotik Dairy. What have you done for 4 years? They are missing that point. So our campaign is on what His Excellency is promising Kenyans in various parts, while Jubilee is about what NASA did not do 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
TJRC.
Let's leave it there. There's so many
was said
issues
about TJRC. I would really want to respond.
All right.
You know, one of the recommendations of the TJRC was that the government of Kenya needs to give an apology, an official apology, because of the ills that have been committed over time against the Kenyan people by the state. And for the first time, His Excellency, the President Uhuru Kenyatta, did that. So, you know, again, to assume that nothing has been done. You know, the JRC is quite a sensitive report. It needs a lot for it to be implemented.
But to be fair, it has not been implemented.
Yes, but that is one of the implementations. When that recommendation was there, and the president, the day he named, if you remember the day that he gave his State of the Nation address and gave the list of the people who had been given to him by the EACC, yes. On that particular day, right. He actually offered, and most people might have missed it, but the truth of the matter is that that is no longer outstanding. That issue of an official apology for all the ills that have been committed over time was given because it was a recommendation. You know, initially it used to be that the state used to bury its head, that like nothing happened, but the TJC made it explicit, and the president gave that apology.
If you may indulge me with 30 seconds, an apology must be followed by action. An apology alone is not sufficient. An apology is not going to affect if you lost your piece of land and the president comes with an apology, it's not going to restore that title deed. An apology alone is a waste of time.
Implementation is going to be a process. It's really not going to be just a single act, and that is the truth of the matter.
All right, thank you for staying with us here on Sunday Edition. We've been discussing some of the things that were said on the campaign trail. A lot is usually said on the campaign trail, but we try to talk about as much as possible. 29 days today to the elections. When we return after this quick commercial break, we delve very briefly into the presidential debates, the upcoming presidential debates, and of course, very quickly onto what we did see in the Nairobi gubernatorial debates. Don't go too far.
This is KTN News.